All right, good evening. I'd like to call the San Mateo County Harbor District Board of Harbor Commissioners meeting for October 7th, 2015 at the Seacrest School Think Tank in Half Moon Bay. I'd like to welcome members of the public, my staff, and my fellow commissioners. May we have a roll call?
Commissioner Bernardo?
Here.
Commissioner Brennan?
Here.
Commissioner Davis?
Here.
Commissioner Giovanni?
Here.
President Mateusz?
Here. So at this time, we will entertain some public comment. And the first public comment I have is from James Lee Hahn.
Good evening to the Commission. I'll make my comments brief because I said pretty much the same thing at the last meeting. I appreciate staff putting together a 368-page hard copy of the agenda packet, but it would be really nice, again, if the agenda could be posted online in separate chunks. Having worked with PDFs, I know that it probably takes a long time to compile all of these items into one 368-page PDF, so it shouldn't be that difficult to split it up into sections by agenda item for the public. As I mentioned at the last meeting or two meetings before, for people with low internet speeds, this is really difficult to download all at once. This is hundreds of megabytes big. That's half a day of downloading. If you need help, I'm available. I've emailed the Commission repeatedly. You have my phone number. If you need any sort of advice on how to set up an easy HTML agenda where each item has an HTML link to the PDF for that item or the supporting documents for that item, I'd be happy to help you. Thank you.
Okay, Brian Rogers, please.
Yeah, I had to talk here quite a bit, so I think people know who I am at this point. This week's topic is the cost of bad behavior. It took me a while to figure out what the folks were talking about at the last meeting. They clearly had some information I didn't have. I had to read about it in the paper. And what they were referencing was that due to one commissioner's bad behavior, it just cost the district $300,000 in a settlement to one employee that was abused at a meeting and in public. I'm also told that the $97,000 we did discuss last meeting for the lawyer was on top of that. I don't know if that's true or not, but if it is, that puts us at $400,000 for bad behavior. Then we're paying her benefits for a couple of years, the paper said. I mean, with our attorney's fees, that's got to put this whole thing at close to $500,000. That's not a joke. That's $500,000 that was spent for one commissioner's bad behavior. That could have paid for almost the entire project of replacing 12 unsafe fingers. I mean, that's your words, not mine. You guys referenced that there's a dozen fingers out at Pillar Point that need to be replaced, and that was going to be $560,000. And instead of being able to do that project, we got to pay for some bad behavior. And I'm concerned by that. I'm concerned that bad behavior has continued. We witnessed it at a meeting, 2 meetings back, where an attack was made that was just unreasonable. To have gone after somebody on an HR issue that should never have been brought out in the public, I can't believe you're not going to get sued again and lose another $300,000 or $400,000. I mean, I know what you can do to stop it. I know that there are certain rules that are in place, and in theory that you guys follow them. If you implement those rules and stop the bad behavior, a lot of this will go away, I hope. It can't get any worse. So, yeah, legal fees are just unreasonable this year due to one person. Thanks.
All right, that takes care of the public.
Wait.
Catherine Slater Carter.
Thank you. Catherine Slater Carter from Montero, a longtime follower of the Harbor Commission, and I am a citizen who is deeply grateful for all the progress this particular board has made over a very few short years. And I really hadn't planned on speaking during public comment, but the last slanderous comments that were made without any attribution to a board member are totally inappropriate and unfounded. And in fact, the staff problems come from the previous general manager, who left a real quagmire and a cesspool of bad management that this board is struggling to overcome. And so I'm impressed at what the board is doing, and I think the way to get around it is with good, sound policies and job descriptions that are implemented with annual job reviews that are documented, and good behavior and bad behavior on the part of employees should be documented and put in the record. I speak about this as having, with my husband, owned a business for over 30 years. And this is how we managed to have good employees, was by having a good, solid work culture. And this district has some absolutely fine people working for it. But some of the problematic people were allowed to remain on staff. And now with this new board, they're feeling the heat. And so they're trying to leave and take as much with them as possible. And good riddance. Again, my thanks and congratulations to every member of this board for what you are doing to improve having an independent harbor district that is representative of the people who use it, both the fishermen and the recreation people, and everyone, the tourists, everybody who comes here appreciates having this good harbor district, and I thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, I believe that concludes public comment. We'll try trial balloon here.
Could somebody possibly shut the doors? I'm having a hard time hearing. Thank you.
All right, item C on the agenda is staff recognition. Any staff recognition? Staff recognition going once? Staff recognition going twice. All right. Moving on to the consent calendar, item D, there's been a request by a commissioner to pull all 3 items. So I'd like to discuss item 1. Item 1 is performance-based compensation agreement with Brad Damitz, the planning and implementation of a pilot beach nourishment project to address ongoing coastal erosion issues at Surfers Beach for an amount not to exceed $50,000, to be exclusively funded by grants or other non-district sources. This was an item by Commissioner David. So I'd like to start with some public comment before the commission discusses this.
Before we start, can you identify who pulled these from the consent calendar?
I had a request from Commissioner Brennan to pull the 3 items.
And this was done during a public meeting?
I got an email, and I was reminded just a few minutes ago that she wished to have all 3 items, and I said, yes, I got the email, and I will pull them. You want to have the staff report before public comment?
Sure, just briefly, I hope that you'll find that materials in here are in line with what was discussed with the commission at the last meeting. So there wasn't really much to do as far as the reporting. We did work closely with council and to put together an agreement that what put together for the district is a novel approach of paying based only on the success of the grant application. I think council should be congratulated. I think they did a good job of putting that first type contract together for us. There's also a report in the packet from Commissioner David.
So I put a lot of effort into basically compiling 10 pages of project presentation and including it in the board packet. And that's pretty much all the information we currently have that I included there. But I'm happy to answer any questions if there remain any.
I have a comment.
All right.
So the reason I pulled this was because I think it's really important for the community, and it's an exciting opportunity. And I wanted to also express my thanks for the report that's included. It helps explain the purpose of seeking grant funding, and then the process, which would be lengthy, and getting the project approved. And I think Brad is here. Is he? Yeah. So thanks for coming a second time to our meeting. You know, I'm very excited about seeing this finally move forward. I was hoping that, just for the sake of the public, either Brad or Commissioner David could describe the project as it's currently being described in this report, so that there's more transparency, and the public is, this is something the public has been interested in for a long time, so I think it's important to get it out there. Is that something that Commissioner David would like to do, or Brad, could you talk about it a little bit?
Sure, I'd be happy to. The amount of details that we have right now, which, you know.
Could you stand up here?
Yeah.
Thank you. And I know this is just, you know, the beginning, so you don't have much to share with us yet.
Yeah, so the idea of this project is to go after funding, grant funding, to fund this project and the planning for the project. So what the project is would be a pilot beach nourishment, opportunistic beach nourishment project where you're placing sediment, clean sediment from inside the harbor over on Surfers Beach. And what we hope to do with that is to study it and determine whether or not it's effective, number one, but also look at and see if there's any environmental impacts, with the hopes that we could show that this is an effective way of providing some protection to the bluffs until a long-term solution like realignment of Highway 1 can be found. And the idea is that you know, if we could prove that this is an effective project, we'd move forward with a larger project in the future. So what this job itself would entail is a lot of, I guess I could put it into a few different categories that kind of all feed into each other. So there's an environmental process. So you'd have to do the NEPA and CEQA, which would probably be an initial study and a mitigated negative declaration. So some of that would probably have to be subcontracted. A lot of it I could do myself and work with the permitting agencies to come up with that process. The other thing is the whole design. How do you move this sand? How do you place it on the beach and spread it out? What's the volume? How do you test it and make sure? So that also, the permitting process, the environmental process, all feed into the design of the project itself. The third big thing is permitting. There's a lot of different agencies involved, and luckily right now a lot of them are on board and they'd like to see this project happen. So that would be pulling together the permitting agencies, coming up with the parameters of the project itself, you know, how much sand are they willing to have placed on the beach, and what kind of mitigation measures do they want. So you're kind of have all these things feeding into the design. The design itself, since I'm not an engineer, there'd have to be some sort of subcontract for an engineer to come up with the exact placement and the drawings and, you know, how do you move the equipment around. So that's part of the project as well, which I'm trying to get funding for. What else? I mean, there's so many other, I kind of wasn't prepared to go through it, but you know, there's a lot of steps involved. One of the considerations about this is that going into the permitting, I mean, the grant application process, there's going to be a lot of work up front, probably a few hundred hours, and you know, those I wouldn't be getting paid for, but I'm confident enough that this project would move forward and get funding. That you know, it's happy to work on it. But.
Last time you talked a little bit about the areas where the material could potentially be moved from. Could you mention that again, just so it's clear to people what we're talking about? Because there's a lot of confusion about, well, is it underwater material like that would be dredged, or is it dry material, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so to back up even a little bit more, try and make this as simple as possible. One of the issues of the reasons that you're not allowed to put the sediment, dredge it from the harbor, even if it's clean, and put it on the beach, is because Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary has a prohibition right now in their regulations that says you can't do this even with a permit right now. You can't do it because it's considered disposal of dredge material. That's up to change, but for right now we can't do that. So how do you move the sand and put it on the beach and get sanctuary approval, there's two options. And this project could involve either one of them. The first option is to take sand from above mean high water in the harbor. You don't dredge it, but you use excavators and other heavy equipment, then you bring it over to the other side of the harbor, and you place it. You can either place it above mean high water. The sanctuary boundary starts at mean high water, so you can put it above mean high water, and then you can also put it below mean high water. Anything above mean high water wouldn't need a sanctuary permit. Anything below would, but the sanctuary has gone on record saying they support a pilot project like that. And we've got a permit coordinator from Greater Farallones who's really wants to work on this as well. So that's the first one. The second part of the project would be if you dredged, which dredge material isn't allowed in the sanctuary, but there's a long sliver of beach where you could place quite a bit of material. So if you dredge some of that material that's causing problems inside the harbor, place that above mean high water, you could also get some protection. So it's either one or two or both. I'm thinking the whole dredge thing is a whole lot of gearing up and mobilizing the equipment. That's more of a long term. I'm hoping that the other project could be something that would start before then. But yeah, so you could place it. There's two locations inside the harbor. One of them is just inside, and just for people who haven't been following this, the Army Corps built that outer breakwater late 50s, early 60s, and it was catching a lot of the sand that would have ended up on the beaches on the other side. They did a study and they said, yes, this is causing a problem. So what we're looking at is a way of mitigating that problem. Even if it wasn't there, you'd still have erosion, and it's not going to solve the problem, but the beach nourishment may help. So the places where the sand is available right now, and it looks like it's very clean and perfect matched sand for the beach, Perch Beach, and Nicole, is it 5,000 to 7,000 cubic yards there?
About 20,000,
yeah.
depending on how much.
About 20,000 there, and then over 75,000 just on the other side of the outer breakwater. That's where the beach, where there's dunes, it's been vegetated. There's about 75,000 cubic yards, but some of it, one of the issues is that since it's vegetation there, it may be considered habitat, and maybe the Coastal Commission would say, just go seaward of that, stay away from that. But there's plenty of material. The next step would be, as part of getting the grant material together and everything, is to come up with a preliminary design, look at the numbers, kind of work with some people, get a map of exactly where that Monterey Bay Sanctuary boundary is, so you could figure out, here's how much sand we have, here's how much space we have over here, and look at different options. So,
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for explaining all that. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
And one thing we're also planning on doing, it might be helpful to point it out, the Harbor District has been paying for a study with the Army Corps of Engineers, and they have done, their study is not out yet, but the draft was supposed to be expected this fall, so any kind of element that they have done, we don't have to duplicate, so we might be able to use their environmental assessment and maybe some engineering drafts for that project, so we will benefit from their work and try to use as much as we possibly can from that report that the Harbor District already paid for.
As well as their continued involvement as part of a technical advisory committee or something. So the people who wrote those studies, we have access to them.
Mike?
I would think that funding should be available.
Come on up, Mike.
Okay.
Next time, fill out your yellow piece of
The
paper.
funding should be available from the Army Corps of Engineers and also Caltrans, because the way it's going, the highway is going to be washed out. And the only way you're going to hold that sediment in that breakwater, you're going to have to put another breakwater out a couple of 100 yards or so out there, built to the same specs that our breakwater is, and then put the fill behind it. If you put that fill there, it's going to just go, none of it's going to stay there.
Yeah.
Believe me, and I would think there should be quite a bit of funding available from both the Corps of Engineers and Caltrans to get going on this.
Yeah, those are definitely.
And the harbor definitely needs to be dredged.
Yeah. Agreed.
Thank you.
All right, could I start with some public comment? James Lee Hahn.
I just wanted to thank the commission, particularly Commissioner David, for putting the staff report together. I personally appreciate the CEQA and State Lands Commission are included and mentioned in there specifically. The main thing I want to say is that it's nice to see some progress being made. I hope the commission keeps looking at ways to get that sand that's submerged in the harbor and get that moved out. As Mr. McHenry says, boats are running aground. It is a safety issue. Part of the Harbor District's mission statement, don't know it word for word, but it's to provide clean, safe harbors and marinas. So I hope you guys keep that in mind. It seems like you are. I also want to thank Commissioner Brennan for starting this beach replenishment committee once she got on the board. I was at the very first beach replenishment committee meeting about 2 years ago, and I know that only Commissioner Brennan was present of the current board, and the public was very much interested in the nitty-gritty, the details of this, whatever beach replenishment would happen. So I appreciate that there are public meetings taking place. I appreciate that Commissioner Brennan had this pulled off consent, because if I recall correctly, Mr. Dennett spoke in public comment for about 10 minutes at the last meeting, essentially gave us a presentation, but most of the public commenters had already spoken, so we weren't able to give input on this. So I appreciate Commissioner Brennan pulling this off consent, and I appreciate Commissioner Mateusz making that happen. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
On item 1, Leonard Warren, please.
Good evening, Mr. President, Commissioners. I just want to support doing anything and everything that this district can possibly do to improve the situation at Surfers Beach. Thank you.
I move to approve the performance-based compensation agreement with Brad Dennett.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Germano?
Aye.
President Tucci?
Aye. All right, item 2, approved contract with Robert Half, account temps, professional service.
That's just a little clarification. There was a recommendation and resolution that was specific, but this is a motion that just basically says go ahead and approve the agreement. It suffices. I'm just going to be clear. We won't have the resolution, but I have been directed to include to approve the agreement.
Okay, so what we have is a contract in progress with Robert Half, account temps, professional services not to exceed $64,000. Staff report, please.
Before I turn it over to Marcia, the highlights in yellow were not intended to be in there, but what they represented was my edits of Marcia's report, just so you're curious guys in there. It's all right, but we're all still in training here. But you know, the situation that we were in, we needed folks. We had some vacancy during the illness and vacancy during the resignation. Had to get payroll done. Already are having serious problems with staff. You know, payroll, unfortunately or fortunately, is more important even than things the commissioners have done right away. It has to happen. There's laws and serious consequences, saying the name and that sort of thing. So we went to Robert Half, who had someone. I hoped to get this on the September 16th agenda. There was so much going on in the office at that time, is that our plan to do that got dropped. I have exceeded my procurement authority by keeping that person there. You may punish me in any way you wish, but we really did see this as a critical thing to do. And really, any alternative, by the way, to this just simply would not make sense. We have a person there who learned very quickly, who has already gotten things done, especially regarding the public and enterprise accounting that we were having trouble with previously. And the idea that we might bring someone else in during this interim period and retrain them to perhaps be not as good, that's just absurd. So I certainly wouldn't be worth calling, in my view, a special meeting before I exceeded my procurement authority. So I think that we made a wise decision there. The plan overall, though, is we're trying to keep the place open and the doors running until the new manager can come in. And this difficulty that we're having now is just this wonderful opportunity, I'll probably refer to it again, to reorganize administration and staff in a way, and I hope you will allow him to do this, in a way that he feels is most efficient. And very few managers have that opportunity. And very few boards have the opportunity to be able to hold their new manager accountable for the results of an organization that they and they alone were able to, organize, with all new staff selected and recruited by them. So this is an opportunity for both sides. So I'm trying very hard not to do anything that would limit those options. At the same time, we're trying to keep the doors open and the payroll going out. And I think this has actually worked out much better than I originally thought it was. We really have a skilled individual in there now. So, Marcia, did I steal all your thunder?
No, not at all, except that I just want to reiterate again, we have no permanent payroll, the accounts payable person resigned at the end, effective the end of September, no accounts receivable, no banking or finance director, and so this person effectively can do all three of those jobs, which makes her unique. So she's literally jumping from desk to desk to desk. So a pretty fantastic opportunity for us, and I would be horrified to think what the alternative would be. So.
Okay, do we have any commissioner comments on item 2?
I have a question.
Okay.
Maybe. No, go ahead. Just what I'm hearing is very informative, but I'm not totally clear. What are you saying that we have somebody who's doing an amazing job, and this is going to allow us to keep them on a temporary basis? Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, I see. So it's really just for one person, not for multiple people for finance, or?
There is a little bit of capacity to bring in someone else, and again, we have to wait until the individual's retiree contract runs its course, and so there's a little bit on the back end for us to then hire somebody on that, but pretty much this is, and there's enough room in here for the general manager to keep this individual in place and then solicit for permanent staff. So that's the flexibility of it.
I believe the new general manager will have to come back to you in November. I was very careful not to even, they probably will, but if they want to extend this contract, and I would fully support them doing so, I want them to come to you and justify it on their own terms. So that's why with many of these things, they're, at least until I get a chance to talk to him and know I'm doing things that he wants, you're going to see some of these contracts more frequently than you otherwise might, because I really want to make sure that they have a hand in it.
Excuse me, the good news is because the district is paying no benefits with all the temporary staff, this is within the budget. So there's no need to increase the budget at all at this time.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bernardo.
I move that we approve the contract with Robert Half Account Temps Professional Services not to exceed $64,000.
I'll second.
Excuse me, if I could just jump in for 1 second. We're trying very hard to help the commission act by resolution. So you do have a resolution, so if it would be possible to...
I move that we approve Resolution 4715 to authorize interim general manager to enter into contract with Robert Half Account Temps for temporary staffing services in an amount not to exceed $64,000.
And I'll second.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernardo.
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan.
Aye.
Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Parabell.
Aye.
President Hughes.
Aye. Pass. Okay, item 3, amend Resolution 1913 to clarify deadlines for reports and materials for commissioners' submitted agenda items. Staff report, please.
Yeah, the intention here is to add to the existing deadlines that in order to get things in the packet, give staff time to review them, to add that any reports and materials that are to get into the packet also come in by that noon Tuesday deadline. Does allow for staff review and fiscal report. We can still take, as we always do, things submitted later and we print them and bring them to the meeting or as additional items. But this will help us carry out, especially Section 1 of the general rules. I think this is just, again, after we pass this one change where we allowed each commissioner to do one item, it's just come to pass that the deadlines are not completely clear. And it did, while I may have thought it inferred materials and other things. I realized it really didn't say that, and it wasn't clear, and it should be.
I have a question.
Question away.
Okay. So I appreciate getting this resolution updated. The question I have is there a policy that also has to get updated because of the resolution? Do we have a policy on this as well, or is it just the resolution, no policy? I'm just confused about whether this impacts a policy.
You know, our policies and resolutions being in various different places, but our review, my review, and if Marcia has looked at it, this is the only place that I have found this.
Okay, all right. And then one thing that I thought might make it more clear is if it says here, rules for the preparation and distribution of meeting agendas, but it really is for regular meetings, isn't it? Because these rules wouldn't apply to special meetings because of the scheduling.
You're right, they could not apply to a special meeting.
So maybe we could just add regular meeting in there just to make it clear what kind of meeting this is specifically.
Yeah, because that helps to clarify further.
Could we do that edit tonight? Just add regular after distribution of, and then just have it say regular meeting agendas?
Yeah, you're the commission. It's really in the confines of the Brown Act to clarify this.
I would like to add the word regular there.
And I think it appears in one more place, distribution of the agenda for regular meetings. Just wherever agenda appears.
Yeah,
clarify that
section-
it's regular should be the.
Section
Motion.
3D and maybe a couple other places.
Yeah, I see it under the third whereas.
Okay. And then
Posting of agenda.
I may have missed this, but I know one of the points of confusion recently was when commissioners have to supply staff with reports. I understand when we have to supply staff with agenda items, but is it clear here when we have to supply reports as well?
12 o'clock noon on the 8th day preceding the commission meeting,
Or which section?
which will now say the regular commission meeting. Item D, 3D, and then the new sentence is, this includes all reports and materials to be included in the agenda packet.
Okay, got it. That's all I have.
I'd like to note a possible Scribner's change in paragraph E. Therefrom expect or accept.
It should be accept. Definitely.
I have a question about that section, if I could ask. E. In the past, one of the says, once the agenda has been printed, an item may not be removed therefrom, except by the majority vote of the commission at the time the item is called at the meeting. I don't think we're following that. I mean, I'm not going to make a big deal out of it, but I think there have been cases or situations where things have been pulled. I'm just pointing it
I
out.
don't think so since I've been here, but
Okay.
I don't know how you could do it without a majority vote, actually.
Well, we've had, I guess what I mean is we've had revisions to the agenda, you know, where things got taken off and then another agenda was sent out as public notice. There have been incidents.
Okay, I'm finding out that there was one recently.
I think it happens sometimes, you know. And
Probably, you know, it's something that might happen more often when staff is new.
so,
Commissioner Garavato?
anyway.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question on section 2, Roman numeral 2, letter B. The individual proponent or proponent group, does that refer to the three, is that a reference to the three persons that can place items on the agenda? Is that the same?
It's not clear to me, actually, what that means. I would think, I would have, and have been, I hope, always putting the name of the commissioner when there's a commissioner submitted item. Other items are always from staff, and we usually write the staff that is doing the report. And I don't know of any other means by which a proponent can put something on the agenda other than the three commissioners. Certainly, if you feel that we should add that, normally it wouldn't occur to me to do that, to put the 3 commissioners that requested an item on an agenda, but if that is something you would like to see happen, if we put it in this policy, then everyone, including the new GM, will know how to handle it.
Well, I just see a difference in identification of who can put items on the agenda. In item, or letter A, there are 3 distinct entities. In letter B, they're identified as proponents or proponent group. And just reading that, I think a proponent group is not allowed to put an item on the agenda.
Well, we have the rule that each commissioner can put 1 item on the agenda, and then if they have a second one, they need majority of the board, which would be then a proponent group. I think that's what it applies to.
Maybe that needs to be written more
Yeah,
clearly.
that could be clarified.
I think you could almost strike B unless anybody thinks there's a problem with identifying when a commissioner submits an item. Because that's our practice, and I think that we've kind of been doing that naturally. Or you can change it.
Proponent group of commissioners.
Yeah, I just don't know how a proponent group, to me a proponent group is citizens want to discuss Romeo here, and there's no way that they can get it on the agenda unless staff thinks it's a good idea, or 3 of you do that, or an individual, so.
So if we get some clarification on that, and then my second comment is on the next page, letter D. Okay, it stipulates a deadline as being 12 o'clock noon on the 8th day preceding the commission meeting. And this includes all reports and materials to be included in the agenda packet. And I would hope that the commission would adhere, or I'm sorry, not only the commission, but the general manager and the legal counsel would adhere to this policy. And unfortunately, this policy has not been in compliance. There have been instances when there have been follow-up information pieces added to the agenda. So my question is, if this is the case, that there are additional items added to the agenda, who pays for those additional costs of printing and staff time to insert those items that have been submitted past the deadline into the agenda packet?
You mean the cost of production?
Yeah.
It would always be the taxpayers of the district for any agenda later.
But does that come from the district or from the proponent?
No, the district always pays the cost. I mean, sometimes proponents do provide materials and they may spend some money acquiring those materials, but the cost of production and staff reports is always borne by the district. And to your point about allowing late items, I tried to use a little humor here, but there wasn't mea culpa on my part for allowing it. I said good intention, bad policy, and I do take that seriously, that I think my desire for leniency was overcame my better judgment in allowing late items.
So it is the hope that this resolution will be in compliance.
Like any policy, it's only good if it's followed, and let me just apologize again for not doing it.
Well, I move to amend Resolution 19-13 to clarify deadlines for reports and materials for commissioner-submitted agenda items with the suggested changes and fixed correction of typos.
And at regular meeting to clarify.
Well, we did have a public comment on this prior to the vote, so if I could have Bill Kehoe up.
Thank you, commissioners and staff. Originally, I was only going to speak on one thing, but you opened my eyes to something new. I was hoping when I first saw this agenda item and you said basically 8 days prior, that would also give the public access earlier. I know you state in the last part about posting agendas, the Brown Act only requires 72. I'd like to remind the commissioners that that's the minimum. And if you have the materials a week earlier, those of us that like to read your agenda items and staff reports for our home entertainment would like them sooner, because this isn't the only district that we look after. So if you already have the materials 8 days ahead of time, could that also mean that it be published on your website or sent out to people on your email list. After the obvious massaging of staff putting it all in a nice little packet. So that was my first request. The second request, I didn't really notice when I read it before, but during the discussion, when you were talking about the Commissioner Caravana brought up, proponents or proponents groups, I said, oh, be still my little heart. They're going to actually be like the fire board and allow the public to ask for items to be on the agenda. Because currently we do have a district here on the coast side that lets the public call up Chief Cole and saying, I want to see, you know, grass fire prevention on the fire board agenda. I would hope, in the interest of open government, and public participation in government, and all those kind of things that everybody stands for at election time, that we would be looking for the same kind of thing from this board. So maybe before you strike or reword that last section B, that you should think about how do you open that up for better public participation. So those are my 2 comments. Thank you.
Is there a second to Commissioner David's motion?
Second.
I have one comment. I just wanted to follow up and say that, you know, I think at some point we should take another look at this and consider ways to make it more public friendly. And I do support the idea of the public being able to get items on the agenda. Obviously, that could take over the agenda, so it would need to be, there'd need to be a balanced approach to it. But I'm gonna give that some further consideration, that's all.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Caravana?
Aye.
President Mateusz?
Aye. Prior to starting old business, perhaps we could entertain some other old business like reopening the doors and getting some airflow.
Oh, well, I'll put my pants back on.
When I look from the hallway out and I could hear it like.
Time you just woke up the crowd.
I know. All right, item 4, fish fire leases, discussion, and possible action, reflecting the September 15th workshop with fish buyers and other stakeholders. Staff report, please.
Before we go to staff report, Mr. President, I'm going to recuse myself from this item because I have an economic conflict of interest because I do business with one of the fish buyers.
Yeah, so how this was supposed to work is I was going to put out an administrative draft of, which is unusual for us in a new process, that are used to our new staff, of my staff report ahead of finalizing the packet, give folks who were at the workshop an opportunity to comment on that. And the purpose of the comment was not to tear apart my recommendations, but to make sure that I at least accurately portrayed the discussion at the workshop. We did, I hope that this went out. I think all 3 fish buyers did get an advance copy in the email of my draft report, which actually, unless I updated the fiscal impact or made some other corrections, is pretty much what you have here because we didn't receive any comments back. Probably one of the reasons we didn't receive comments back is because staff misunderstood what I had intended regarding posting the administrative draft. In any event, first of all, if this is not, the description of the workshop is not reflective of what occurred, and it's important, one, of course, we could take comment now, but the other is, I have no reason to hurry this item. I'd rather do it right than do it quickly, and we can leave this staff report, table this item, and take this up at another time when people feel that they've had time to review and comment on the report, and especially, I think it is important that we've accurately captured the flavor of that workshop, which I thought, in terms of its tone and its spirit of cooperation, went very well. So I don't want anyone to feel that they were not represented in the staff report. So I'd put that before you first, whether or not you think more time would be a good idea. And then, I don't know if it's appropriate to go on, because I don't know what you do about that, but basically we took a look, we got responses back from the 3 fish buyers on the proposals that were made at the workshop. As you can see, 2 went with the overall 50% reduction in rates, which was higher on wet fish than the commission had suggested. The commission said $3 a ton, 50% reduction would be $5 a ton on wet fish, but brought in a 50% reduction to 5 cents a pound on fin and shellfish, and also from the workshop suggested a 50% reduction in the retail fee.
I thought that actually one fish buyer wanted $3 a ton on wet fish, one wanted $5 a ton, and one was okay with 5 or 3.
Yeah, you're right about 2 being 5 or 3, and I just hadn't gotten to the 1 and 3 yet. But
okay.
Correct. So that gave you the flavor of those. What came out of the workshop as a suggestion was that what we do with the leases is instead of putting the fish fee in the leases, the loading fees in the leases, that we, of course, first we have to propose this to Department of Boating and Waterways, that we instead just use language to the effect of as per the unloading fees in the district's fee schedule, and that they would be included in the fee schedule.
Can I make a point of clarification on that, since that was my suggestion? So I did suggest that as an option during the workshop, and actually the impression I got was that the fish buyers did not think that was a good idea. So I was a little confused by the staff report, which seemed to make it appear that people were on board with that suggestion that I made, when my perception, and maybe I misunderstood things, but my perception was that I liked the idea, but no one else did.
Well, you know, I mean, that's another good reason to table the item. We have one fish buyer here. I could be wrong. I remember that at first I said, gee, I'm not that sure if I like the idea of it being in the fee schedule, because, you know, that means the district could raise it without changing the lease. And others said, well, let me think about that, and I thought that some had said that would be okay in terms of getting the reduction, but again, that's another reason to table this and get more input, find out what will go. Anything we do to these leases has to be mutually agreeable, so we certainly don't want to do anything that isn't going to fly.
I think that's the really key part, is that there has to be buy-in, you know, because we can't propose something that...
Right. There's buy-in, there's approved by us and the leases, there's Department of Boating and Waterways approval, and also, you know, I'm not going to step into Steve's shoes, but there, in contract law, when you give something, you get something, you know, that's part of what a contract is, so we have to pay attention to what, you know, what the equity is.
I have a comment when it's my turn.
Commissioner Brennan.
So at the last meeting where we discussed this, the board gave direction on moving forward with meeting with the fish buyers and the fishermen, which now has happened. And also, my memory was that we had directed staff to start working towards finding a solution to reduce the fees, and I believe we voted for $3 a ton for the wet fish, and then we were going to keep the finfish and shellfish the same. Whatever the case, it's my impression that council has not been part of the process to date, and that council, because we're talking about legally binding agreements, should start the process of coming up with solutions to help the district resolve the dilemma that we're in. So I'm hopeful that that could happen, because it seems like we're kind of spinning our wheels here with this report tonight, and I would be fine with just tabling this, you know, for another meeting when council has had more time to get back to the board on various options. Does that make sense to other commissioners?
I could see tabling this item, because having attended the meeting talking about the fish buying fees, as I recall from the meeting, there was an agreement to have another meeting, and it wasn't finalized. That's how I remember the meeting. And I see at least 2 of the fish buyers of the 3 that were there are nodding their heads in approval. So therefore, before moving ahead with tabling this, we do have a couple of public comments. So whether we table, approve, or whatever, let's get on with a couple of public comments on item 4. William Smith.
Good evening, President and Commissioners. My name is Captain William Smith, and I am the owner of the CPV vessel Riptide. I have been running charter boats out of this harbor for over 30 years. There's been a harbor ticket fee structure in place for that entire time levied on the charter boats, which is supposedly to cover the cost and repairs of our customers' usage of the parking lots, wear and tear, and on all the facilities. I too have a commercial activity permit to operate. In regards to the off-boat fish sales, there's been a major impact on the harbor. Without a doubt, it has resulted in a significant increase in the amount of people who patronize the harbor, which is good for everyone. But it results in a major impact on the harbor facilities. To disregard this impact on the harbor infrastructure and facilities by lowering slip fees and not collecting percentages of sales is causing a major impact on the docks, the parking lots, the public toilets, and so forth. It is not even taking into account the wear and tear done by the massive amounts of squid and the trucks on the pier being done. To ensure the harbor's continued success, I'm in favor of having the harbor reasonably increase the fees being charged to both the off-boat fish sales and to the squid trucking. Alternatively, if there's going to be a reduction in their slip fees, then it should apply to charter vessels as well, as with a reduction of our harbor ticket fees, a rollback of pricing, retroactive return of monies paid by the charter boats. Thank you very much.
Do we have a motion to table this item?
I move that we table the item.
Oh, wait, I got one more. Mike, I almost missed you. Thank you.
Yes, I recalled when we had our workshop here that day, we were supposed to get together and discuss it further, is what I thought. I never got a notice to do that. I don't know if I'm correct or not, but I'm still kind of waiting. Now I see this is on the agenda. $3 a ton is still the highest above point conception that there is. And Dornbush went out and did it. You paid him a lot of money to go out and find this. He didn't believe my findings, which I understand, it has to be official. Why somebody would want to pay $5 when the board already voted on 3 and Dornbush, that was their suggestion, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me, it just doesn't make sense. But whatever. Here we go, and what I've been worried about is the decline of the squid. Because from 2003 to 2010, we didn't unload 1 pound of squid at our dock, or I don't think any of the docks. We're in a warm water cycle. I see this thing the last 2-3 years has been very good, but I see it peaking and going down now. I wouldn't be surprised if we get nothing. Our landings this year, and squid season's over right now, our landings are about 1/3 of what they were last year. Just so I want you folks to understand when you make your decisions later on. We unloaded at $30 a ton, $47,000 worth of squid. The harbor took $10 a ton, $15,000. That leaves us $31,000. The rent to date is $25,000 to date. So would we make $6,000 before we pay any labor, any forklifts, which are $10,000 to $15,000 a year with the rentals and everything and the propane. To run the freezers and everything have been $6,000 to $8,000 so far this year. The insurance is several $1,000s. I don't know the exact figure. We just got it established. I think your charges for the taxes underneath the dock for the ground. We have weights and measures to deal with. We have scales we have to keep done. There better be crab this year. There better be crab. And there were absolutely no salmon. And I want you people to understand that. So we're setting ourselves up for a real bad scenario. And you need the buyers out there to handle your whole commercial fleet. I've chosen not to buy fish. 3 captains and Morningstar buy and sell the fish. There's not enough room for 3 buyers to buy and sell because we'd be out there. It would be so competitive, it'd be ridiculous. I choose to unload and get a poundage fee, which has brought in a lot of outside buyers and boats, which has been very good for the fleet. We bought $30-some thousand worth of ice last year, which you guys didn't get a cut on it. It's, you know, not to mention the fuel sales and the restaurant sales and stuff. So anyway, I want you folks to understand that at $10 a ton, you took our nest egg, farming and fishing. We had good years. You want to put something away.
Mike, I can't let everybody keep going over the limit.
Okay, but you get the idea of what I'm trying to tell you. I can show you all in black and white.
Okay, Commissioner David.
So I agree to table this item because of the 2 concerns that were raised by staff. One was the draft report should receive feedback and input from all stakeholders, and including the fish buyers. It would be good to have everybody's input before the board makes a decision. And then there's a concern regarding the Department of Boating and Waterways, and we really should have explicit written notice from them that we can change the leases or modify them regarding the fish buying fees without their approval. So those 2 concerns, I think, are enough for us to address this at a later point and not move on this item right now. But we also, I don't know if it was 2 meetings ago, we briefly discussed a common area maintenance fee for tenants, and I would like to see if that would be a good balance that this would provide to basically avoid the risk that changing the lease or reducing the fees for the fish buyers could be perceived as a gift of public funds. So I would like to see if that would bring a better balance to the table, and then also how much, I don't really understand at this point how much reasonably could be charged to the tenants per slip space or usage of the pier to apply a cam fee. So maybe a table, if there's a time while we wait for the other things to move forward, to give the board an idea of how much revenue could be brought in with the common area maintenance fee.
I'd like to make a comment when it's my turn.
Commissioner Brennan.
Since we're talking about common area maintenance, which is not on the agenda, I think it's important that if there is a common area maintenance fee considered, that it be equitable. We have to keep in mind that there are all kinds of users of Johnson Pier, including the public, recreational boaters, fishermen who sell fish off their boats, the fish buyers. We get people from out of town that are at a dock temporarily. I mean, there's a lot of different types of uses. We also have semi-trucks coming in from fish processors who are, out of the county. All of those people use the pier and put wear and tear on it. And so whatever system is devised, it needs to be equitable based on the fact that everyone uses the pier. And it is a public resource, and it is providing public access. So I think we need to look at this whole thing very holistically. It's unfair to only charge 3 businesses for wear and tear on a pier that many other businesses put wear and tear on the pier, as well as some of the other more public uses. I know I ride my bicycle on the pier, maybe I'm not supposed to, but, I mean, we all use it. So that's it.
Okay, is there a motion to table this for another date?
So move. I'll second.
Right, roll call?
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner David?
Aye.
Commissioner Carabano? Other than this one.
Aye. All right, moving on to item 5, appointment of general manager.
Would you like me to wait for my staff report until Mr. Carvana is here?
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Unless we can turn on a big fan.
Ice cream next moving.
5 and 6.
Oh, it's a lot cooler out there.
All right, proceeding along with item 5, appointment of general manager. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Matoush. So at your meeting last month, you Harbor Commissioners unanimously approved a resolution appointing Steve McGraw as your new general manager. And right before you voted to do so, I read out loud in the meeting a summary of the terms of his compensation package, and I made a mistake in what I said. It was not a mistake in the contract that had been negotiated pursuant to the process the board set up. A mistake in what I said. I said in public that the compensation package included 3 months of a housing allowance, when in fact the contract said 12 months of a housing allowance, and I regret that mistake and apologize for it. And because of that mistake, the impression was left that the board had voted based on the information that I just announced in the public. So I think it is would be a good idea to reaffirm, if you choose to do so, your adoption of that resolution, based now on the express statement that the contract includes 3 months, excuse me, I said it again, includes 12 months of a housing allowance, not 3 months. And that's really the only issue.
All right, Commissioner comments.
Are we gonna have public comment first?
Well, what we've been doing for the most of this evening is doing staff and then public, unless we're going to flip it all of a sudden in the middle of the meeting. So,
Well, I'd like to consider the public comment before I make my comment.
all right, well, I think that you have a habit of being dealt with fairly, so we will let you speak as when it's your turn. Any other commissioner comments?
I have one.
All right, Commissioner David.
So I just wanted to point out that I hear the concerns from the commercial fishermen, whom I've gotten a few phone calls from over the past couple weeks. And also regarding the letter that the commission has received from the Huffman Bay Seafood Marketing Association. I still do believe that with a very thorough interview process, we have really researched the candidates well, and we have placed additionally scheduled performance reviews in the first year of employment in the contract that will provide good opportunities for direction and feedback from the board. So these regular check-ins, I think they will really help to reinforce the goals and prevent misunderstandings. And I'm confident that Stephen McGraw will represent the district and the board excellently and in a manner that reflects the priorities and the goals of the Harbor District and the Commission.
Commissioner Bernardo.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to say I want to thank Commissioner David for spearheading these efforts of the entire process of bringing on the new general manager. I know it was a very complex process, and it involved a lot of stakeholders, a lot of people who volunteered their time to help, and the different panels, the technical panel and just a lot of orchestration. So, you know, I want to acknowledge that, and I want to thank you for such an effort to get to where we are today. I also have a question, and I'm not sure who to direct this to, so I'm just going to throw it out there. It's my understanding that if we, you know, bring on Mr. McGrath, this is an at-will situation, right? I mean, I'm trying to understand. In most public agencies, my understanding is the executive director, the general manager, it's an at-will.
It's what we call an any Wednesday job.
Right.
You can terminate his employment anytime you
Right.
like. He
Okay,
works,
thank
he
you.
works
That's
at the pleasure
my-
of the board.
Thank you. That was my understanding, because as someone who works in a public agency myself, my understanding is that certain positions, especially the ones at the top, are usually at will. So, okay, so just wanted to ask that question. I'm going to support the reaffirmation of this resolution 4515, because I am very eager to just move this forward, to just finish this process that was begun months ago. And I'm really, really excited, you know, that we are going to have a new general manager finally in that position. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Mr. President, my comments are along the lines of taking us back to how we got here. And I also would like to thank the search committee of President Mateusz and Commissioner David for bringing us, I believe, a list of close to 60 candidates, of which we were presented with 4 finalists. And what's important to note here is that these 4 finalists were weaned from a larger list, which were interviewed by 2 at-large committees made up of community members, leaders, and stakeholders at the harbor. So none of these concerns were brought up to us at the time during this process. And as already been stated earlier in the comments, the contract does have provisions where there are performance evaluations conducted by the commission. It's also a at-will contract, which means that the commission can negate the contract on any date. So I believe that the comments that have been received since the selection of the finalists are incorporated into this contract. Maybe not explicitly, but I think all 5 of us have heard them, have heard your comments and your concerns, and I will do my best to reflect the concerns and the wishes of the people of the county to ensure that we maintain a general manager that is successful, that is reflective of the vision of the San Mateo County Harbor District. So I too will support the signing and approval of this contract.
Okay, if I could add, there's been some consideration or some concern about sending this person down the road with an additional 6 months worth of salary. There's no additional compensation for termination with cause. And I just want to clear that up. In addition, everyone should be aware that this was a very in-depth process. This person underwent more interviews for this type of position than anyone ever has in this country. The consultant interviewed him to determine his qualifications. There was a community panel that interviewed him, a professional panel. The Board of Harbor Commissioners interviewed him, and then when we got down to our final 4, there was an additional written skills response to all of the final people to get an example of his writing skills. So that's 5 interviews for this position as we were trying to do the most in-depth community responsive and receptive plan that we could possibly come up with. So this is something that has not been performed to this extent for someone else. Is there any more commissioner comments before we go to public comments. And Commissioner Brennan, I do understand you want to make one after public comments.
Well, since we're making comments before public comment, I will make a comment too, which is regarding, well, first I want to start by saying the following comments are about making sure the Harbor District is following best practices and not about the actual general manager candidate. So my first comments are about process, and I would agree with the comments that Commissioner Mateusz made about the process that the district followed. It was a healthy process, in my opinion. The district hired a search consultant to conduct an extensive search process. Job applicants were vetted by the consultant and interviewed by the executive search committee, 2 commissioners, Mateusz and David. The search committee selected a pool of applicants, and those applicants were interviewed by a technical panel and a stakeholder panel, so 2 separate panels. So there was a lot of work that went into that, especially by the panels that were pulled together to do these interviews. I believe they took like half a day each time. 4 applicants were interviewed by the board once. So the board conducted 1 interview of each of the 4 applicants. And the board unanimously selected Mr. McGraw as our top choice. Now I want to talk a little bit about expectations. It's very important that the general manager understand that San Mateo County benefits from the success of the commercial fishing fleet. The Mid-Coast Local Coastal Program, the LCP, section 12.5.A states, commercial fishing and recreational boating are on an equal basis, and the San Mateo County Harbor District must accommodate those needs accordingly. This applies specifically to Pillar Point Harbor with regards to space and resources. It's my expectation that the general manager will work constructively with Pillar Point Harbor and Oyster Point Marina tenants and users. It's vital to the future of the Harbor District that the general manager maintain a good relationship with commercial fishermen, recreational boaters, and charter boat operators. Anything less may result in dissolution of the district. We can't afford to repeat past mistakes. The board has not yet established a list of goals for the general manager. It's my recommendation that the board hold a special meeting with the general manager and come up with a list of agreed-on goals within the first month of employment with the district. I also recommend that the board conduct a performance evaluation at 3 months, 6 months, and 1 year during the first year of employment. I do have some questions about the contract, and I'll read those now, but we could get back to getting clarification on the questions after public comment. So my questions are, I received and read the general manager contract in full last week when it was provided to me by staff. And I have the following questions. The contract specifies that Mr. McGraw will accrue 40 hours of paid time off, what we call PTO, per month. That means that Mr. McGraw could work as little as 9 months per year for 12 months pay if he took 1 week of PTO per month. This concerns me because the district needs a full-time manager. Why are the paid time off terms so generous? And we can get back. I don't want to interrupt public comment, so I'll leave it at that.
Commissioner Brennan, you reminded me that I missed in my list of the number of interviews that he went through was not 5, it was 6.
Okay.
So thank you for that reminder. So public comment on item 5. Let's start with Mike McHenry.
All right, listening to this and watching the reaction of the board, all 5 of you appear extremely desperate to get somebody in here. I mean, it totally appears that way. I've got calls from several fishermen, upstanding people that said, you better pay attention. The boys down in Avila were not happy at all the way it turned out. And I don't know the man personally. It looks like I will meet him. It's a bad way to step out. I know there's association members that are scared to reprimand and say what they've heard because of retribution when he gets in here. So you're not hearing all the stories. There's a lot of people available. I don't think the committees you met with really have dealt with the past stuff. I think I was told by one of the men that they talked to Pietro Paravano and explained everything to him, and apparently he didn't pass it on to you people, and he thought that he had. So I'm just telling you what I've heard. I hope you don't get another Grinnell, is all I gotta say. I would strongly recommend severe probation period. If he gets out of alignment, whack him. And that's all I can say. And hopefully he'll turn out to be good, and I'll give him an apology. Thank you.
Catherine Slater Carter.
Thank you, members of the commission. Catherine Slater Carter. I think I've read the letter from the Fishermen's Association, and since the contract was available last week, that's when I got to read it. So I have a couple comments. One is, I think some of the problems that are being raised can be addressed with a good set of policies and goals and review. And I'm not quite sure how you would do your job interview, your performance reviews. I don't think a self-critique by your new manager is going to be the best way to do it. So I don't have suggestions. This is something that I think every special district wrestles with, is exactly how to make sure that your mission statement, your policies, your goals, and your stakeholders are all being served, and not by having somebody just do a self-report, because it said some people are harder on themselves, but I haven't noticed that when it comes to evaluating themselves for money. I do think one of the things might be to a comment that Bill Kehoe brought up, and that is to allow the public to put agenda items on the agenda here, possibly for action, rather than just at public comment. It might be a way of increasing your dialogue in an actionable manner with the public and with your stakeholders. And it might help to alleviate some of the concerns that some of the stakeholder groups have raised. Lastly, the contract. Getting paid, a teacher, I mean, this is not a teacher's salary that you're paying this guy. You know, generally it's said that teachers work 9 months, but they get paid for 12, but they get those 3 months off, so they're not getting paid for this. This guy's getting a 12-month salary plus 3 months off. And I don't know, I'm watching what's going on in terms of public salaries. If you indeed had 60 qualified people, and indeed had 4 that you were strongly considering, you did have some room for negotiation. And so I think that you've made the commitment to hire this fellow, but I suggest that you make a stronger commitment to manage district finances. Couple $10,000 or $20,000 in salary covers a lot of fish buying fees. And so I notice this a lot. It's going off the top, and then the public is being asked to pick up the pieces. Thank you.
James Lee Hahn.
I already sent the commission a letter, so I'll keep my comments brief. I do just want to reemphasize, though, that 540 hours of paid time off does seem excessive. I come from a background of supporting organized labor, so I'm all for public employees getting the best benefits they can, but as a taxpayer and as someone with a working class perspective, 540 hours of paid time off, which is over 13 working weeks, over 25% of a year, seems excessive. I do also want to bring up that no one here who sent you concerns were complaining about the lengthy process you did to interview your GM candidates. We are here because we're concerned about the contract itself. We are not concerned about the process you had before then. That's obfuscation. So I just wanted to make that clear. I also want to make it clear that based on comments made from staff and from the commission in the last few meetings about the need to hire staff, the fact that you're understaffed, I would just ask rhetorically, how likely is it that you all would fire a general manager at will? And how likely is it that you would fire a general manager with cause so that you don't have to pay benefits other than PTO? I think that's highly unlikely. And the reason why people are concerned about what seems like a very wonky issue, appointing a GM, it's not about the candidate itself, it's about the process, because the history of this district is one where a lack of attention to process has brought the district into a lot of trouble. So we're just here trying to tell you, we want you guys, we're actually rooting for you. We're telling you to make things watertight, to make things better. So I really appreciate that other people have been talking about a probationary period. I like the idea of performance review at 3, 6, 12 months. That sounds good. But I would hope you take those ideas on board before fast tracking this. You still, I know Commissioner Bernardo said you guys took months on this, but a lot of public agencies spend more than months on hiring a new GM, especially if they want to get things done right. And you still have time to do this promptly. Thank you.
Bill Kehoe.
Thank you again, Commissioners. I agree with pretty much all the previous speakers. What got me out here tonight was the fact that you're basically hiring somebody part-time. You know, I worked for, God, I can't count how many decades in private industry. And every time I switched companies, I went all the way back to square one, waiting a whole year before I could get 2 measly weeks. To give somebody 4 weeks, which is basically at his salary, that's a $12,500 hiring bonus. I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve it, but your job as commissioners is holding a tight financial rein on the district. I see when I go through your documents and I see OPM in there, for the longest time I thought, Jesus, we're finally going to talk about other people's money before I realized you were talking about Oyster Point Marina. I want you to talk about it. I want you to talk about other people's money. I'm retired now, and I get a COLA benefit from Social Security, as probably some of you do. We're lucky if you see 1%. I'm watching not just you as a special district, but I'll point to some other special district people in here, and the salaries and the benefits that they're throwing out there, and it's because it's OPM. And at some point, I'm trying to get people organized and have a gray revolution here that says, you gotta be tighter. Just from a hiring standpoint, I've hired many people for big corporations. I don't see, if you don't lay down the groundwork now and telling him what, whoever the person is, I'm not talking personally about the gentleman you're gonna hire, I don't know him, I'm not even fully clear on his whole background, so he may be better than I know. But how can you do any kind of performance review, compensation review, or look for merit bonuses next year if you don't have laid out what his goals and expectations are? So talking about a 3-month, 6-month, 12-year review, this is an ongoing process, and you have to be clear up front. So when it comes time to say, well, you met this goal, but you didn't meet this one, and maybe this year we're not going to give you a raise. That's what goes on when I was working. But the really, like I said, the really scary thing here is I know you work really hard. I think you're doing the best you can, but you still have to hold a tighter rein on the dollars and the cents. I mean, to just throw out that kind of time off. I mean, I hate to be this way, but I can't let this joke go by. I know you've only in the past been used to part-time general managers because they've had their own private banks to run. But please, stop it. That's why we voted you in here. I'll leave you for 30 seconds.
Oh, God, he finally got me. Okay, Leonard Warren.
Good evening, Mr. President, Commissioners. I'm going to try to repeat very little of what the previous speakers have said.
Can you speak up a little bit, because I'm having a hard time hearing?
I'm going to try and repeat very little of what the previous speaker said. I agree with probably all of it. The biggest thing, basically the reason I came down here tonight is because the PTO is insane. It's basically double what's reasonable. I've never heard of anybody getting more than 6 weeks, and this is more than double the 6 weeks, which is a typical top end. So you really need to pull that back and modify that term. I don't think you have to worry about him bailing because you want to change some terms, because my understanding is he's out of a job on a 3-2 vote already at his current position. So, and that segues into the severance. For the first 6 months probably, maybe more, but I'll just say 6 months, the amount of severance he gets for termination without cause should be no more than 1 month. The reason that you normally give a high amount of severance, like 6 months pay, is because people at this level have typically left another job to take this job, and normally their job search is very, very long because it's stratified air at that point. But considering that, well, I don't think I need to repeat that. You need to have a shorter severance for the first some amount of time, like 6 months, and you need to cut way back on the PTO, and the EIB is nuts. The maximum accumulations of both of those are crazy. He must have written this himself and asked for the moon, and you just gave it to him. The provisions of this contract are insane, and you know, I have no opinion at all on Mr. McGrath. I don't know anything about him. I hope that he's good, but you need to fix some of the really bad terms in this contract, and the cap on PTO needs to be less, EIB, and if he's, you know, given the large amount of PTO, if he's going to take more than a certain amount, say starting at a week continuous, he needs to, at the very least, notify the board 2 weeks in advance that he's going to be gone for a week or more. And if you don't put that provision in, trust me, you're going to regret not having that position there. And you also need to have limits on how much time off can be taken if he gives notice. Because what I've seen over and over and over again is managers quit and then take all of the, you know, they'll give 60 days notice and then take the whole 60 days of time off.
Thank you, Mr. Warren.
You can't afford that either. So you got a lot of problems with this contract.
Dan Haggerty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and honorable commissioners. Dan Haggerty, El Granada. I'm also on the Mid-Coast Community Council, but I'm speaking for myself tonight. I live very close to the harbor, and so whatever happens to the harbor is very important to me, and a number of other community members that aren't here tonight have, over the years, expressed a lot of concern. I did read the Half Moon Bay Fishermen's Association letter, and I do believe it has a lot of merit. I would expect that the commissioners sitting here tonight would also feel that it's very important that the Fishermen's Association feels respected, their wishes and their concerns addressed. I believe everybody in this room fully supports a successful commercial fishing set of conditions in our harbor. And, you know, I want to say I agree pretty much with everything that previous speakers have said. You know, on the employment agreement, mentioning that it's an at-will, that you can, you know, terminate this general manager for any reason at all. I read the termination section, I believe it's section 7 on the agreement, and it doesn't seem as easy as it was appeared to be delivered to us tonight. I would recommend that the commission consider changing in the duties section of the employment agreement, change all to routine in front of responsibility and services, acts, functions, and duties. I think all is just too, it's just too general. There's been a lot of concerns with the past general manager having too much control and too much power and just driving the harbor into trouble. So I would recommend that you please rescind the resolution 4515 and have further discussions and negotiations regarding the appointment. And trust me, I get that each and every one of you want to see that the district is moving forward and getting something done. But as the previous speakers have said, you know, we need to do this right the first time and not suffer consequences down the road by having problems. So please consider to rescind. Thank you.
Right, and we have a speaker slip from Commissioner Brennan, who will go to the podium and speak for no more than 3 minutes on behalf of Bud Rats.
So Bud Rats is on vacation right now, and he is a member of the Harbor District Finance Committee, and he's also the retired Director of Financial Management and Planning at Stanford University. I believe someone's in the audience who used to work with him. I don't know when that was exactly. Hi. Bud's email to President Mateusz and the board says, Dear Tom, I apologize for this late response to the proposed employment contract for the district's new general manager. I have 2 comments. 1, the contract should have a very clear probationary period wherein the district could terminate the contract without cause and without obligation other than earn PTO. Ideally, for the benefit of the district, the new employee there should be a 6-month period and a 12-month period. The initial 6-month period provides an opportunity for correction of desired items without termination. There would be a review at the 12-month period and a final decision made at that time. The existing contract does not provide this opportunity for severance. Given some feedback that I have received, I believe that this is a critical issue for the district. Also, it would be beneficial to have goals and objectives attached as an addendum to the contract. 2, the PTO section is one of the most generous that I have ever seen in my employment contract. This initial accrual of 20 days on the date of signing is on the, well, he just calls it strange. This is, in fact, the equivalent of a signing bonus and should be stated as such. When all aspects of the PTO are taken into account, it is the equivalent of a week of PTO for every month of employment. This equates to working 75% of the time. This section is neither concise or clear. This document is a critical one for the district's reestablishment of its credibility. There is adequate time to correct the contract before the starting date of November 19th. Would you please forward this to the commissioners, blah, blah, blah. So, thank you.
All right, do we have a motion to reaffirm Resolution 4515 adopted on September 16th on the basis of the accurate compensation information disclosed to the public at the meeting and to finalize Mr. McGraw's term of employment?
I'd like to get answers to my questions when it's the appropriate time.
Okay, how about some answers to,
So moved.
what were your questions?
The question was, why is the paid time off term, well, why are the terms so generous? So this is a question for Mr. Miller because he, my understanding is he negotiated with.
Sure, I'll be happy to answer your question.
Okay.
I will explain how we arrived at the number of hours. Won't comment as to whether or not they are generous or not. That's really for the board to decide. So the board has a policy number 6.5.1, that applies to all its employees of any level. And those policies call for annual accrued PTO up to 256 hours with a maximum, 256 hours a year with a maximum of 540 hours. So Mr. McGraw's contract is, with regards to PTO, is consistent with the district's policy in that there's a maximum of 540 hours. The difference is that he asked for, and as part of the process and the direction from the search committee and the board, and the negotiation is a complicated process, he wanted to start with a bank of PTO hours. In my experience, that is not at all an uncommon situation for a manager of a public agency. And so that's where the additional hours in excess of your policy of 256 come into play. But his PTO, except for the bank that he starts with, his PTO package is no more generous than the lowest level admin aid you have in your staff, and the same goes for EIB. All of the other benefits, except for the bank he starts with, are the same as applied to any district employee.
So one of the things that I was very clear about previously was that, or very clear on, was that we as a board should not repeat mistakes that have been made in the past with past contracts. And as far as I know, there is absolutely no reason why we have to incorporate policy. You said it was 6.5.1, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason why that needed to get incorporated into this contract, and that wasn't a term that the board specified, and I'm concerned about how that got in there, and I was only provided with this contract to read in full last week, although I had asked for it repeatedly in advance of that, before that. So I'm just, you know, I understand that maybe it's one of our many policies that I think we need to revise. I don't see why that got put in this.
Okay. Well, you are
contract.
welcome not to vote for this contract. This is your general manager, and you should be comfortable with it. I can tell you, in my experience, and in general and in particular, it would have been difficult to have a successful negotiation asking your general manager to accept benefit packages less than your admin aides. We had long discussions, and all the different parts of a contract are interconnected. I brought you the best contract I could after considerable direction from your search committee and more than one closed session with the full board, but this is your contract, not my contract, so you should feel free to do as you wish.
So, was there a second or a motion?
There was a motion.
I second.
So because of my concerns about what I consider very generous PTO, and my concerns about how this contract, in my opinion, lacked an opportunity for board input in advance of this meeting. You know, as difficult as this is for me, I cannot support voting for this contract. I am in support of hiring the general manager, but I think this contract needs work, and I'm just disappointed with the contract. So for that reason, I cannot vote to support it.
All right, we have first and second. Can we have a roll call?
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
No.
Commissioner David?
Aye.
Commissioner Carabano?
Aye.
President Mateusz?
Aye. All right, item 6, discussion and possible action regarding the City of South San Francisco Oyster Point Marina JPA study session held on September 16th. And this was an item placed on the agenda by Commissioner Brennan, and she directed the bulk of the staff report, I believe.
Well, I have a staff report that I just want to quickly say. My concerns are twofold, but they're related. One is, and I hope it was a friendly disagreement, some of the items that Commissioner Brennan thought were already available, I'm not sure are. If I can be pointed to them, that would be fine, and I hope that we have an opportunity, should you go ahead with the proposal, to have some discussion about the staff, whether these reports are readily available, and then the staff will be able to put them together by whatever day you want to hold the study session. I want to say it is not staff's desire at all, the commission needs more information, to be an obstacle in that, but thus far, the information I have brought you, all the feedback I've gotten from the commission is that it has been inadequate. And given our staff time that we have now, I fear that, that it will continue to be as inadequate if you keep relying on us to provide that information. So that's, that's the bulk of my comment. The other comment I want to make is that this is a big thing. I know everybody hates doing studies, but this is half of our operations. And if anything, justified at least some expenditure on an outside report, this could be it. And so I'd ask you to consider whether or not we could do an RFP for an outside firm to do a report, drawing solely on existing resources, if you like, either here at the district or elsewhere in the county. And I would also want to extend to our partners in the City of South San Francisco at the Liaison Committee or through other means, that perhaps they would like to help us design the scope of a truly objective study and share in the cost, so that we could be discussing a common set of facts, or at least identifying areas where we agree to disagree. I think it would go a long way towards working things out. But I'm not against, would not recommend against what Commissioner Brennan has opposed. I think it's a good idea to provide more information. I'm just hopeful, not exactly on board yet, that the staff can do it.
For point of clarification, which are the items that you're troubled by as far as having staff time?
Okay, sure. I've divided this up, this part of the report up between myself and Marcia, because she's more on top of the finance. I do have the consolidated version of the JPA, which since Jim Steele is here, I'll say is, no, it's not official, but I just kind of did a part where I took the amendments and took out the parts that were deleted and left them in there. Might be a good start if we wanted to do it restated. The information on Oyster Point marina infrastructure infill impacted by landfill subsidence and sea level rise. Yes, we have a good deal of information on that. I don't know if we have all of the available information on that. We can put a call in that says, hey, whatever you've got, send us, and we'll include it. But I don't know necessarily how, there's also information that one group study contradicts another, so I'm not sure where that will go, but I'm not sure exactly what's meant. We certainly have some information, but it may not be everything that everybody wants. Review the Oyster Point landfill annual report. I believe we have that, and I think that's been available. I think it may even be on our website under both the JPA section of our website, and also because our website, believe it or not, has gotten a lot of things on it lately, and it's hard to find things, so we put it in the news section as well. And then I'll let Marcia talk about the financial data.
So far, just to recap, the one thing that you need help with is the information regarding infrastructure impacted by landfill subsidence.
So far,
and
yeah,
sea
on my
level rise.
administrative list. Marcia?
Okay.
As far as review of the Oyster Point Marina income versus expense, anything that's internal to the district is accessible. Anything external to the district is where we would need probably some significant support.
Marcia, when you say accessible, in what time frame, given our current staffing? I mean, in other words, I want people to know, what else might not happen, or.
Right. So again, the commission has tasked us with 10 RFPs and counting. So again, so at some point, I think the commission just needs to put together a list of everything you want, and then start giving us a time frame of when you want them. So all the commissioners have items that we want done.
Maybe we could just focus on this right now, though, because.
So I can't answer the general manager's question without putting that out there.
Okay, let me put it this way.
So let me finish, and then you can weigh in on that. So review updated list of surrounding marina slip rates. I have no knowledge where that would be. So
Point of information, that has been created in the past and been included in board packets.
Good.
When we have reviewed rates and fees.
Correct.
So that could be found probably with the last review of rates and fees. And it's probably close enough to today's date to be useful now.
So as long as we have these internal, then I don't have a problem with that. So as long as you say that that's available in a past sort of budget review process, that's not a problem. Reviewed spreadsheet of all Oyster Point Marina capital improvements over the past 10 years. We certainly can put out a report on that. Review occupancy report for past 10 years that includes comparable occupancy data from other marinas. Again, that is not something that I can give you the 10 years of our data. Comparing it against other marinas for the last 10 years, again, is a Herculean project.
So just a point of information on that, I believe that if we had the information related to our marina, that would be helpful, and I think Scott Grundy may have some information, so it might be good to, I know he's not here tonight, but I'd love to hear what he has to say about that.
And I think certainly we can have this topic for discussion at the next board meeting as well. We can continue the discussion on this. So again, anything that is internal to the district, we have access to that information. Any request for 10 years of information for the broader market would probably take a significant amount of resources. And I think that speaks to what the interim general manager was saying. If there is a goal, so the question is what is the goal of this information? And I think maybe there's a strategic plan, and I like what the interim general manager suggested about working together with the city of South San Francisco to maybe come up with a strategic goal as to what all you want, because I believe there will be more information along those lines. And so I hope that answers your question.
Can I give my report now? Okay. So to follow up, before I start on what I have here are 3 things that the staff needs help with. That's the review of the Oyster Point Marina income versus expense analysis. I believe that's something that probably a couple members of the finance committee could put together based on past budgets and financial data. The review information on Oyster Point Marina infrastructure impacted by landfill subsidence and sea level rise. Interestingly, that came up today during the sea level rise meeting held in Foster City that was hosted by Supervisor Dave Pine, and there is a way to get some of that information, and probably working with South San Francisco would be the place to start. So I could take that on. I'd be happy to do that. Review occupancy report for past 10 years. And again, I'd like to chat with Scott about what's reasonable, because we could scale back this request and make it simpler, if that's helpful. But I'd like to talk with him first to see what he's got or what's easy for him to get. Because I know all those harbor masters talk to each other. So as far as my report goes, first of all, I just want to say I offered to put this report together because the staff is so busy working on other things, so I was not expecting the staff to also put a report together, but I appreciated it. So for background, the City of South San Francisco held a study session on September 16th, 2015 at 6:30 p.m. regarding the Oyster Point Marina JPA. Unfortunately, the liaison committee members from the Harbor District were not able to attend that study session because that happened to coincidentally be the same night as a regular Harbor District meeting, the same night and same time. So we weren't able to be there. But I believe that the district has received a CD with the recording from that study session. I haven't listened to it yet, but I'm looking forward to getting up to date on the staff report and the city council discussion during the study session. And that's available to the whole board or the public if they want to hear it. So I've asked the board to please read Assistant City Manager Jim Steele's attached staff report, which is in the packet, and it's called Consideration of Operations of Oyster Point Marina Park, and Jim Steele is with us tonight in the audience. It is in the best interest of the Harbor District that management, the board, and the public have a solid understanding of the Oyster Point Marina JPA. Future Marina Park development plans, infrastructure improvement plans, income versus expenses associated with operations, and environmental considerations such as landfill subsidence and sea level rise. My recommendation is that we schedule a special meeting study session that includes the following: review of consolidated version of Oyster Point Marina JPA, which, as staff pointed out, is on the Harbor District's website now, on the very front page of the website, so it's easy to find. And what this is the original JPA with the amendments combined into one document. It's not an official document, but it's meant to make it easier for the public and for the board to process, where we're at with the JPA today, because so many changes have happened over the years. Review Oyster Point Marina income versus expenses. We talked about that. Review updated list of surrounding marinas and slip rates. We already have that. Review spreadsheet of all Oyster Point Marina capital improvements. Review information on Oyster Point Marina infrastructure impacted by sea level rise and land subsidence. That's important because, as everybody on the board knows, and some of the public members, and certainly all of Harbor Patrol, there has been significant subsidence at Oyster Point, and our Harbor Master's office is not accessible during high tide events due to sea level rise and land subsidence combined. So it's a combination of issues going on there. Review occupancy, review Oyster Point landfill report. This is interesting because I only just learned this week. Apparently there are sensors in the buildings at Oyster Point that are meant to test for methane gases, and there is supposed to be a process for checking the calibration and the readings off these sensors. And according to the San Mateo County Environmental Health Division, they don't have the reports that are required for the testing results of these sensors. So that's something that the district needs to figure out what's going on with that, because methane gas is potentially explosive, and this is not something, it's a public health issue. It's not something we want to not deal with. And then the last recommendation is to schedule a special meeting, site visit at Oyster Point Marina so that we can see what's there, and the public's invited. So it's really a two-part thing. I think this could all happen potentially on the same day, where we have maybe the site visit first, and then we have the special meeting, which is essentially a study session. The fiscal impact is just routine costs associated with calling a special meeting, which are already reflected in budget, and that's a quote that I got from the general manager. I didn't come up with that on my own, because I wasn't sure. I do want to turn your attention to a couple of things in the South San Francisco staff report that I noticed that I thought were interesting.
This is not going to be redundant to the special meeting that you're hoping to call, is it?
No, this is their special meeting and their staff report and their
I'm just asking you if it's
workshop.
going to be redundant to the meeting that you want to have.
No, because I don't think at that meeting we would be discussing their staff report. I think we'd be considering our own information versus theirs. So, but I'll keep it brief. I get your point. So the thing that I think is most noteworthy here is, and if Jim Steele wanted to speak to this, that might be helpful. It says here that there may be opportunity to increase revenue at Oyster Point Marina. The city is consulting with Keister, Marston Associates, an expert in real estate economies and marina operations, to determine and understand what additional revenues could be gained from Oyster Point Marina operations to offset deficit. It appears, based on the staff report, that there's interest in considering options, including terminating the JPA early or potentially continuing the JPA until its end date. So if Mr. Steele wanted to explain a little bit about the consulting work, I would love to hear about it, or we could wait till we have the liaison committee meeting, but I'm not sure. I don't think that's been scheduled yet.
I don't believe we've let members of the public know that we were expecting a presentation
Well,
from
it's not,
Mr. Steele.
I don't mean to put you on the spot. Sorry about that.
Up to the chair, if you'd like me to speak, I'm happy to.
In the interest of time for tonight, we'll give you up to 3 minutes.
Thank you.
So keep in mind, this was written by staff. We struggle with some of the issues that the general manager spoke about not having the time to really delve into these things. So we do want to look at the opportunity for revenue, just like what you mentioned about slip rates and occupancy. Kaiser Marston and Associates is a renowned development economics firm. We've just begun discussions with them. They haven't done any work yet. I don't know what they're going to find, but I think that's going to be really important for all of us to see the results, but it's just now getting started.
Thank you.
So would someone like to make a motion that we have a study session and a special meeting site visit of Oyster Point Marina?
I move that we hold a study session and that we have a site visit at a date that works for the staff. Obviously, there's some preparatory work that needs to happen first, so I don't want to specify a date at this time.
Through the chair, will this date be before or after the new general manager starts?
But it would be after,
Okay.
definitely after, because I think involving the new general manager in this is really crucial.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Oh,
Good point, thank you. Just when we think we've heard it all, we haven't. James Lee Hahn.
Sorry to speak from the bleachers, I just didn't want you guys to get in trouble. I already sent you an email on this item, so you know what my position is on this. I do, however, want to draw your attention to page 9 of item 13, if you're so inclined to flip to it, that is. That's the WEDA, Water Emergency Transport Authority, ridership survey for Oyster Point Marina. If you take a look at that, There's a little graph in there showing how many trips are taken between the South City terminal and other terminals in Oakland, South City, and San Francisco. Oakland, I think Alameda and San Francisco. The total numbers of rides, not ferry trips, but rides, like people actually taking rides, is just under 10,000 rides in 1 month. Also in that survey, it says that almost 100% of the people riding on Oyster Point, on the ferry from Oyster Point to other destinations or the reverse, almost 100% of them are commuters. And if you look at the demographic breakdown of the ridership of Oyster Point Marina skews young, skews into a 6-figure household income demographic, and also, suffice to say that the ridership of your ferry at Oyster Point Marina does not accurately reflect the demographics of the county itself. It serves a richer, wider, and also, thing I forgot, a more English-speaking population, which also gives you a clue as to the demographic ridership of Oyster Point Marina. I bring this up because at the LAFCO meeting where the board approved the MSR, one of the things they brought up was an absence of nexus, so-called, between the tax base of the Harbor District and who actually uses Harbor District public resources. If you're concerned about absence of nexus, I had some issues with that. Some of you heard me speak up on those issues at the LAFCO meeting. But if you're concerned about an absence of nexus between who's actually utilizing these public resources, does it actually serve county residents, I would suggest the ultimate end goal of whatever study session you have should be to figure out a way to disassociate the Harbor District from Oyster Point Marina and essentially let the JPA die out or end it prematurely. I do also want to mention that I'm fine with a longer time frame. I would prefer that staff work independently. I already delineated to you my concerns as to why I think Harbor District staff should work independently to create a staff report. The city is going to do their own report. They already did for that council study session. And the city has every right to advocate for the needs of Oyster Point Marina. They should. If I was a South City resident and I cared about Oyster Point, that's exactly what I'd want them to do. But for Harbor District commissioners, your concern is the county residents all across the peninsula and how to better serve everyone altogether. I hope you keep that in mind and take an independent approach. Thanks.
Leonard Warren.
Good evening, Mr. President, Commissioners. I definitely think that you need to study this at length, but the conclusion is actually on page 159 of your PDF packet for tonight, and some document from the city is really hard me to go back and forth with these big things, but basically it says that the city, if they were to take over operation of Oyster Point, anticipates a net deficit of $1.1 million. So I would figure that that's probably a good indicator of how much the Harbor District is losing on Oyster Point. And to repeat what I've said previous times, you need to look for a way out of this JPA agreement. And the letters from the city manager's office, basically they're telling you how to run the district without actually telling you how to run the district, but they are in fact trying to tell you what to do. And under the JPA agreement, they don't have that authority. The authority on how to run, I didn't mean run the district, I meant run Oyster Point. The exclusive authority for how to run Oyster Point rests with this board here. And the city cannot tell you what to do. They can only insist that you follow the terms of the JPA agreement. And I suggest that the only thing that's appropriate for this district to do is do the minimum that's required by that agreement. And if the city doesn't like it, they can offer to this district to dissolve the JPA, and you should accept that offer if they make it. Thank you.
All right, I think we've got our motion and our second. Is everyone clear on the motion and second for a study session and a site visit?
Second.
No.
Second.
Well, there was no second. Is there a second on a study session at Pillar Point to discuss all these things? If there's not a second, I'll make a second. Roll call.
Just for point of clarification, study session at Pillar Point, is that what you just said?
No, at Oyster Point.
I meant,
Okay.
maybe I misspoke.
Sorry, I heard Pillar Point and I'm like.
So the site visit and a study session. And
Yes.
now we're discussing
At Oyster.
the study session, which will also be,
Include a site visit.
we'll do both at the same time.
I have a question, Mr. President. I didn't hear in the comments or in our discussion at the commission level, the recommendations of the liaison committee for Oyster Point Marina into this. So I think before diving into this study session, we should at least get some recommendations from the liaison committee in terms of what we should be looking for in terms of priorities, and just to, let the committee do its work, thereby letting the commission make it a little bit easier, a little bit, having us have much better understanding of exactly what the scope of the study session should be like. So that's my thought, is just, I think we're disrupting the process. The liaison committee needs to meet, and then based on those recommendations, make a committee report to the full commission. And then we have a much better idea of setting an agenda, setting priorities, and grasping and understanding what our direction should be like.
South San Francisco has canceled our liaison committee meeting a couple times already, and we're looking forward to setting a date at some point. I see affirmative action from Mr. Steele, so I believe that will be forthcoming. And I don't believe the two have to happen right away, but it'd be nice sooner we can get together and start finding some common ground. It'll probably also help our study session, I would imagine.
I think the reason why I am hoping that we can have a study session is because there's a real lack of information right now. And so for the board, and especially the committee members, to be educated would be incredibly helpful in their work on the committee. And the city council members on the committee have the advantage of, which is a positive thing, of having had a study session already. And so their staff worked hard to put together a great staff report, and they held a study session in advance of a liaison committee meeting. And I think at this point we don't know when the liaison committee meeting is going to be rescheduled, but I don't see why the Harbor District shouldn't also have a study session just like South San Francisco did. So I think,
Well, members of the public, they may even choose to send someone to attend. But let's get on with our roll call on this item.
I'm sorry, I'm just kind of confused at the motion, I'm sorry, it's just, okay, so this is a joint meeting or just commission study session meeting?
Well, if it's open to the public.
it's a special meeting, just like their study session was a special meeting.
And then this is just gonna be all the harbor commissioners, okay.
And anyone who wants, the South City folks are welcome to attend as well. It's open to the public, anyone can come.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner David?
Aye.
Commissioner Pierabano? President Mateusz?
Aye.
I mean, my understanding, and what I would, so correct me if I'm wrong, but what I will explain to Mr. McGraw is that this session will use the materials as described in Commissioner Brennan's report. And that's what I'll be explaining.
Okay, item 7, bills and claims in the amount of $304,111.03.
Mr. President, I reviewed the bills and claims for the period ending October 7th, 2015. And I would like to make a motion that we approve the bills and claims in the amount of $416,219 $304,115. I'm sorry. $304,111.03. I apologize for the mistake.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
No.
I'm sorry. Commissioner David?
Aye.
Commissioner Piedmont?
Aye.
President Bush?
Aye.
Through the chair, I'd like to suggest an amendment to the bills and claims. The number should have been $416,219.15. I'm sorry.
Doesn't it say that here? 416?
Yeah, but I misspoke.
Well, the agenda.
The agenda had a different number.
I see, okay.
Sorry.
Perhaps we could make another motion that overrides our last motion.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion that we approve the bills and claims in the amount of $416,219.15.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
No.
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Piedmont?
Aye.
President Bush?
Aye.
Thank you.
Let's see. Item 8, Pillar Point Seafood retroactive electrical bill. Staff report, please.
Yeah, let me just really quickly, I mean, there's been the information that's in the packet. I mean, the most important part of this is that Mr. McHenry can look me in the eye and tell me he had a gentleman's agreement for that electricity. I am not disputing that. I'm not doubting his integrity. My problem is I don't have a documentation of a gentleman's agreement. I don't know what the whole agreement was. I wasn't there. My experience here at the Harbor District doesn't give me any reason to believe that gentlemen's agreements, which should never be made because they're not written, were never made, nor that there aren't other gentlemen's agreements out there that may come before you. And so be careful about equity and how you might set precedents. That said, I can't waive monies that we feel are due to the district. It's not my money. I can certainly do that if I can use a motion of yours to document that at least I haven't done this by myself on my own whim. And that's really, why that's before you, for you to decide how you feel both about that and possible future equity issues when others come forward to you and tell you that they also had handshake agreements. That's really, for me, the issue in a nutshell. We could go into some detail on how we came up with that 2,558 over a 3-year period. For one thing, 3 years is as far back as we can legally go. The electricity was actually for a longer period of time. Scott did his best to estimate it. I know that that was, Mr. McHenry feels differently because there were some bad squid years in there and he thinks that our electrical estimate was too high. But I don't think we need to even get into the details of the electrical, how it was estimated, if the commission feels that we should waive the fees. So that's really what I'm looking for, some direction from you.
I move that we waive the fee.
That's without public comment?
Is there public comment?
Yes.
Okay.
I second it.
Mike McHenry.
All right, I guess I'm the crook. All right, it goes way back. You or Scott Grimmy are about 25 years too late. Bob was there. We were fishing squid, and as I remember it, it's kind of blurry. We had this old pump with a big 371 Jimmy on it, and it would just roared and spit squid all over, and it was a grotesque thing. And Bob McMahon saw me in the morning. He goes, Mike, I'm getting calls all night long. He says, people are thinking there's a spaceship down there with the squid lights and the noise and everything. He goes, I can keep them off your back till you finish your season. Next year, can you get an electric pump? Which is quiet. And I did. My wife and I went to Seattle. We bought an electric pump, brought it down there, just had it all set, went to plug it in, no 100 amp service. Okay, now what do I do, Bob? I got the pump and everything for you. And he goes, the only 100 amps is down in the sewer ejector pump. And he, is what he told me. He says, I'll have my electrician just hook into it. He said, I'm so happy to see squid unload. It's a new fishery, which it was at that time. It was a new one. I had Jerry Pemberton and Merlo working on, 2 of your best employees were working on my boat. Dave Bishotti was working on it. He says, the little bit of electricity for the ice and all the stuff and the inspiration, he says, don't worry about it. Next year, I'm gonna have, or later on in the season, I'm gonna have my electrician come in and he'll change it, put it through the meter. I says, okay, right on, go to work. Well, here we go, and never heard a thing about it. It was supposedly changed. There's been a dozen electricians underneath there. We paid a bunch of money to work on that injector pump. If they didn't see it, I mean, I've never been under there. I think the harbor was paying these electricians to go clean up everything, and maybe they didn't even go down there and see this. I don't know. So I get hit with this bill, and keep in mind, it's not the money. It's not the money. It's the principle of where it came from. Scott Grindy's out there. He took a picture of the pipe that's been going to the dock right there in front of everybody for 25 years. It was like he hit a home run at the Giants game. Oh, look, I found this. You're stealing electricity. Well, he went and did some tests and stuff, and sure enough, I was stealing electricity. So next thing he hits me with this bill. And I said, did that come from the commission? Or, because I don't remember going to the meetings and stuff, the commission saying, get after this guy. So it became apparent he was doing this on his own. And that's kind of when you came in, and I said, hey, wait a minute here. I had overpaid a couple of years before that. You owed me, I think it was $7,000. So we were going to solve the money I overpaid you first, and then number 2, we were going to talk about this squid pump money. And you were there, and I had a tape recorder. I wanted to record it because every time I did something like this with Grinnell, he lied to me. And you didn't want me to have the tape recorder in there for whatever reason. So I didn't record it. So I get the $7,000 check, the retribution money, and you'd taken the $25.58 out already. That was not what we talked about. We were going to settle item number 1 and deal with item number 2 later. So I just think this is coming from somewhere else. I just remember Holsinger's last words were, is there any way we can get McHenry's lease? And
Mike,
for
thank
Scott
you.
to take it on. And I also think Larry Furtado, a couple of years before that, had taken electricity under the dock. I might be wrong, Larry, but I thought you had for monitoring fish.
In fact, Larry Furtado is next on public comment.
Yeah, Larry Furtado, one of the 3 captains at Furtado Fisheries. Where Mike doesn't want to pay $5, he wants to pay $3.50 for a ton. I had to go out and rent a generator at $2,200 a month to run my pump. For Mike McHenry, was getting it from the extra 100 amp service. And Mike is wrong, we all have a 100 amp service. There's one extra 100 amp for the sewer. And I remember about 20 years ago, the harbor didn't send us a bill for the water. Oh, we forgot. Oh, we raised holy hell. We had to pay it. So now he's saying that he used electricity and it was the guy gave permission. That don't happen at the harbor. You pay for everything. You do what you want, but that's the truth.
Did you get electricity off there before?
I had a generator, Mike.
Way back.
Way back.
I'm talking with monitoring fishing. Anyway.
We had a diesel pump.
James Lee Hahn.
I actually left the room when this item started to catch the reporter because I think this is the most egregious item on the agenda for tonight and the most egregious I've seen in a long time. Again, I've sent you a letter regarding this specific item, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. But some of the key words mentioned in the staff report are without documentation, we approximated a figure, we cannot validate. All of these statements should indicate to the commission and to staff that pursuing this money is not on. This opens the Harbor District up to possible legal action. Obviously, it's not a whole huge amount of money, but this is really unsavory. And whatever you want to say about the intention of this item is fine, but the optics, regardless of your intention, is terrible. To be pursuing someone for a 4-figure balance that you cannot document is not on. For a historic agreement with someone who's not even employed with the district anymore is not on. I urge you to pay Mr. McHenry his full balance and to have that, and to direct staff to do that. It's just really, anyway, I've said enough about why I think it's terrible, but I will say that this again calls to mind previous comments made by members of the public, including myself, Mr. John Owen, whom the commission took time to thank for finding out about some finance issues that you guys had. That this really calls into this really just emphasizes the fact that you guys need to do a forensic audit. I hope that one of you will be willing to ask for that to be put on the agenda, if not tonight, at another time, but that really needs to be done. You cannot be pursuing people willy-nilly for these small fees without any sort of documentation as admitted by staff. And again, to give you an idea of how much time and resources was already spent on this item, we've been here for maybe a quarter of an hour discussing this, maybe a fifth of an hour. Staff took time during their own working hours to come up with these numbers, to pursue this. So I put it to you that if staff had been focusing on other things, such as preparing materials for an OPM study session, you would have saved money on this already. You would have had your $25.58 back. Thank you.
John Dooley.
John Dooley, Commercial Business. On this meter out there at the end of the dock, 1980, I bought a boat around from Pascagoula, Mississippi, through the Panama Canal, and you know I did, Diego. And I kept it here at the harbor, waiting for king crab season, so I needed power, so there was not enough power at the end of the dock. So on my own expense, with permission from the harbor at the time, to put in that meter, and that's the 4th meter. And that's the meter that McHenry's tied into there now. And there was a meter on it all the time and everything like that. And so when I went to Alaska with my boats, I sold that to the harbor because the sewer pump supply under the dock went bad. So they tied into that meter there. But somehow, you know, I mean, this getting something free from the harbor, I just don't think it happened because they didn't give me free. You know, I mean, they made me do what I had to do and pay and have it, my own meter on it and everything like that. And so I think that setup, that hookup on Pillar Point's been there for a long time. You know, I would venture to say 82, 83, something like that. I mean, it's been free electricity for all that time, you know, because it was determined that it was hooked on the underside before the meter. So it was, you know, it was the harbor's meter. And I wouldn't think that that's a real good thing, because like Larry was saying to you, that all the rest of the guys had to go rent generators and stuff, and it's just like every time these guys are at a disadvantage, you know, and then stand there and call the kettle black. I mean, and I think it's out of line.
Do we need to restate the motion, or is everybody clear?
Yeah, there's a first and a second.
Yeah, and I just have a
To
quick
waive
comment.
the
Just a
Commissioner Bernardo.
Thank you. Really quick, I'm going to support this motion just because I want to make this put this behind us. This is just another one of those things just that get in the way of other business that we should be tackling here at the Harbor District. Not to diminish it, not that it's not important, but we just need to move on. But I do want to say that, first of all, I wish that that Scott Grindy had been here, because I would have liked to have heard from Scott Grindy, just for the record. And then the other thing is, this is really an equity issue. The way we treat one tenant and one business partner, we have to treat everyone the same. So I just want to, again, just for the record, going forward, okay, whatever resource it is, whether it's electricity or whatever, let's just keep that in mind, that we treat everyone the same. That if we give certain electricity to certain folks, we give that same amount to certain folks. So that's all I'm going to say about this. I would just like to put this behind us so we can move on to other things.
Any other staff comments? Commissioner David.
I just wanted to add on that note from Commissioner Bernardo that I think it is still pretty important that the electrical work that was performed previously is being permitted, because I think that's where we have a concern for liability for the Harbor District. So hopefully we can take care of that, and then it's also in consistency with the lease. So I'd like to encourage that.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner David?
Aye.
Commissioner Carmona?
Aye.
President Bush?
Aye. Okay, item 9, special use permit for City of South San Francisco Department of Parks and Recreation for Thanksgiving Fun Run, Saturday, November 14th. Staff report, please.
Yeah, Scott not being here, what I want to say is that you've done this for the district have done this for 25 years. But we have a new majority on the board, and for what it's worth, your interim general manager generally feels that there should be direction to the board on fee waivers. So that's why it's here, and that's why it's an action item. If you all were just sitting here next year and it came up again, it would be a consent item if you approve it.
I move that we approve the special use permit for the City of South San Francisco Department of Parks and Recreation for the Thanksgiving Fun Run to be held on Saturday, November 14th, 2015.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment and to waive all permit fees.
Yes, thank you.
I second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner David?
Aye.
Commissioner Carmona?
Aye.
President Bush?
Aye. I had a request to move item 10 to the last item on the agenda. So we're going to go to staff reports. Interim General Manager Lazo.
Yeah, you have the written report. It has been a struggle with the staff situation. I think it is good that we are keeping the doors open. Some of it has been very fortunate with the interims that we've had, the temporary staff that we've had. It's not that we've been perfect and not made some mistakes, but we're learning, and I appreciate all the patience from commissioners on things like agendas that may have had to be recalled in the mail and that sort of thing. We're working stuff out. But part of it is keeping all the stuff running. We are going at a very fast clip, and I guarantee you I will be apologizing for more stuff at the next meeting. But the important thing is the doors are open, bills are getting paid, people are getting their checks, and we are at least holding meetings. So we're doing what we can. As far as the report goes, I think it's all written out here. Again, if there's substantial discussion, I really would like to chair it and move that things be put on for a discussion item or agenda if we're going to really get into topics.
Any commissioner comments?
I have a quick question of clarification. Regarding on page 3 of 18, it says staff has been working on social media policy to bring to the commission for review. And then my understanding is that there is already a policy that's been drafted, but it just hasn't gotten on the agenda yet. Is that accurate?
I just about finished my review of it today. I'm hoping that it will be on your next meeting. And
Okay.
that will be prerequisite to, as soon as that's done, I'll be able to sign the agreement. I think Fondini, I think that's ready to go.
And then the 5-year capital improvement plan, continuing to consolidate interim list as adopted on August 19th. I just wanted to ask you to kind of recap what was discussed at the Finance Committee meeting related to this. There were some additional items.
Right, and I'm going to have an item on October 18th for those additional items to be added to the list, which is why I've pushed Melanie to get together by the end of this week, that consolidated list, so I can get it in the next packet with the amendments.
Great.
And it's funny, I do want to take a moment to say that these are tasks that anyone go, how long does this take? And the answer is not very long, but finding 45 minutes in a day to do this can be a challenge.
Okay, item 12, interim administrative services manager report.
Thank you, Mr. President. You have my report. We did meet with the Finance Committee. I thought that was a very productive meeting. Thank you very much. We were requested to do a history of legal expenses going back 10 years by department, and that is attached. I also just want to give the board an update. We did complete the final request for bid for the bait shop, and that went out in the mail today to the Department of Boating and Waterways. Since it's only 50 or 60 pages long, I'm sure they will turn it around in a few days and send it back to us.
President hardly had to beat me to get it off the desk today.
So it's very exciting, and I think the document is a substantial improvement in lease terms. So I would encourage the board to review it and also give us feedback for future leases going forward. Other than that, I will take any questions.
Can I say on that lease too, we have this question, how long does it take Department of Waterways to approve something? So I kept track of when it went in the mail, and let's see.
Mr. President, through the chair, I'd like to ask Marcia, in your report on page 3 of 3.
Yes.
Thank you for showing this to us, and I think that what I'm reading here for the members of the public, that there's a graph that was submitted in her report that shows the rising cost, legal cost, relative to departments. And the departments are Oyster Point Marina, Pillar Point Harbor Administration, and Commission. And the graph, am I reading this correctly? That the Commission in 2012, 2013 had a legal expense of $60,000 or somewhere around the $70,000, and in 2013 through 2014 was approximately $148,000, and 2014 to 2015 the Commission alone is close to $250,000. Am I reading this correct?
Yes, you are, and I just want to make a comment for the labels. The labels are a little bit backwards. So the first bar to the left of these years is administration. The second one, which is non-existent for most of the years, is the Commission. The third one is Oyster Point, and then the fourth one is Pillar Point. So if you're asking for 12-13, the second from the left, the dark one, second from the left, and this looks much better in color, by the way.
It does.
So the Commission basically had $16,000 in legal expenses, and you can see that the legal expenses were very nominal. And then in 13-14 and 14-15, the legal expenses jumped pretty dramatically. I think the takeaway from this is that legal doesn't charge us if somebody doesn't talk to them.
Yeah.
And so the more you ask...
Or write them.
Or write them, right. They can't charge us if there's no communication. So the more the board communicates with legal, and good, bad, or indifferent, right or wrong, the more the board communicates with legal, the higher the expenses will continue to go. And so this becomes a decision for the board. I just want to say that 1415 has not closed because we just recently got another bill for June from one of the legal firms. So 1415 will go up again. And also July, we're continuing to get bills for July, so that number also will go up. So from my perspective, it's just the question, is there a way for there to be some control of the legal? Doesn't matter how it happens, just is there a way for the board to make a decision about that?
And I'd like to make a comment. So I asked for this report, and one of the things that we discussed, because this report was part of the finance committee meeting, and staff included it with the packet, which I think is a good thing. One of the things that we discussed is how to get a handle on exactly what it is we are spending money on with legal fees. Is it contracts, you know, is it hours spent at meetings for our attorney? Is it telephone conversations? What is it, you know? And one of the things that one of our public members at the committee pointed out is that we need to start breaking out in reports what types of spending we're doing on legal fees, because that would potentially be helpful to the board to figure out how to rein in those costs. So I think there's some ways to do some additional reports down the road, not right now, to glean more information that might be helpful to the board later in ways that we could look at reducing costs. Obviously, you know, we increased the hourly rate that we pay for legal. What was that, like a little over a year and a half ago? So when you increase your hourly rate for your attorney, your fees go up, and that's just a fact. Also, we also discussed that there is some subjectivity in deciding how to allocate legal fees, and everyone who makes these allocations, meaning in the finance department, or, you know, if the general manager weighs in, makes a subjective decision as to how the fees get allocated. So just as an example, our interim general manager might look at a legal fee and think that it goes towards administration or a particular location, Pillar Point or Oyster Point, and the person in finance might think that it goes to the commission. So if you go through the invoicing, you'll see that there is subjectivity in the decision-making going on about how fees are being allocated, and that can also get political, which our interim general manager pointed out at our last meeting. So I think looking at more reports on this will be useful in the future. Obviously, I think everybody on this board is committed to looking at ways to reduce our fees. And the interim general manager also pointed out, well, maybe I should let you say it, when you were talking about how with less employees how did you put that? I can't remember exactly.
Having less employees lowers some of the exposures.
Yeah, and we have a lot of temporary employees right now, so our exposure is much less.
I mean, I'm not saying that that's the way to go about things.
But it is a point well taken.
Also, if the district was dissolved, you'd have no legal expenses.
Well, that would do it.
May I make a comment, President Mateusz?
Please.
So, first of all, I'd like to say that I am eagerly looking forward to be part of the solution and not just constantly meeting after meeting being identified as the problem. I mean that genuinely. I also, not sure I agree that the solution is just to stop talking to me, because this district has some significant legal issues that have risen in the last few years that may or may not be normal. It's too soon to know. But I'd like to think, and I acknowledge my bias as being pro-lawyer, that you would not have solved your legal problems by just not talking to me. So I don't think that the solution is just not to talk to me. Maybe part of the solution, but it's not as simple as that. The other thing I'll say is that I am planning, I think part of the issue is that with the temporary nature of the interim general manager, it's necessitated your council to be more involved in some aspects of the district operations than might otherwise be the case. So Marcia's comment about not talking to me may have some benefit, but I am looking forward to working with your new general manager. And as part of the transition, I'm planning on providing him sort of an overview of the areas that I've been focused on and where I think legal issues are, so that he knows what I think of as the major issues, and therefore he'll be in a position to advise you as to how to control the legal costs, whether by controlling risk or controlling access to the lawyer. But I want to make sure that he understands what I've been doing for the last 12 months in as organized a fashion as I can. I agree that these 4 categories don't really tell the story. I think the way we submit our invoices does tell the story, but I'm going to even try and summarize that in a way that makes sure that he understands what's going on.
And if I could just tag onto that really quickly, I do agree that not talking to counsel is not necessarily a way to reduce legal fees. I think, in fact, if you don't get good advice from counsel, you could end up with a lot of headaches and legal fees down the road. So I think being proactive and getting good, solid advice up front to avoid legal problems is really critical for this district, especially with regard to some of the issues we've had that have come up related to permitting projects and things like that. So I don't mean to at all suggest that legal isn't important. It is.
And just to make it even fuzzier, if I might, it's even fuzzier than that, because at least I know 3 of us in this room here, and more out there, we own boats. You know, there's a lot of guys that'll work on your boat for $25 an hour and end up costing you $10,000. So it's not just what your legal counsel provides, it's the value of what they provide. My cheapest boat guy is the most expensive one that I actually have ever employed. And I think all of you will have most of that experience. So, you know, there's more to it than what the charge is. The other thing is, keep in mind, society and this community have changed. People are more litigious, is that the word? Litigious. And also, I mean, some things that were very simple in this town, that didn't used to require permits, that didn't require going before the Council Commission, now they do. And that involves, because we're all new at the process, more money. That's just one small example. I'm not trying to single that out. Frankly, I'm glad CEQA's there. I benefit from a protected environment as well as this. You know, we all do. I'm just saying there's more out there now that we have to be careful of. And I think, now I'm not saying that explains the steep curve in our expense, but I do think that probably every agency, more so than inflation, has seen their legal costs rise. The courts have been making, I mean, Deborah's here can tell you, the courts have been making employee law just, you know, this morass of everything you do has risk. And you're trying to choose between what will get you sued for the least amount or less likely all the time. So there's a lot of things going into this. I'm not trying to say it's hopeless either, but the more you look at it, the more complex the solutions are going to be.
So through the chair, I'm not advocating at all that we not seek legal counsel at all. What I am advocating is being strategic in our use of legal counsel. Rather than ask them every question that comes to mind, maybe the board can be more thoughtful in its process as to what it wants to create liability for the district. And in so doing, making a thoughtful decision as to when the board does make decisions that create liability. Just plan on the expense for that ahead of time. That's all.
Okay. Mr. President, I think moving forward, I just would like to thank Marcia for this report. And I think a way to look at this is that the commission illegal expenses approximately probably let me see, just about $175,000 more than any other group that this graph reflects. I think my math might be off by a little bit, but it definitely is the largest component of a legal expense. And the irony of this, there's only 5 of us. We are the smallest group of any of these columns.
Correct.
So we all own this.
That's correct.
There's only 5 people that have.
Right now, there are more of you than there are administrators.
Yeah, that's true. There's only 5 people that have accumulated a bill, a legal expense bill of now more than $250,000.
My biggest concern is we're on track for $1 million this year.
Wow.
And so my question to the board, is that where you want to be spending your money? Is that where you want the resources of the district to go? It's a decision, and again, that's what the board is elected to do, is to make these decisions. Again, so I'm just asking that maybe there's a strategic decision in here.
Don't panic about on track. You'll need a little more months to see whether July was typical. I think the board is well aware of, various things that have gone on that had peaked at certain times and are unwinding. So, I wouldn't panic on July. I would, however, panic at the trend you're seeing at the whole picture.
All right, well, thank you for that summary. Since Scott Grindy isn't here and time is leaving us rapidly as well, I'm going to say that we have a written report from Scott. The only thing that I personally missed in it was a progress update on grants and a progress update on the coffee shop at Oyster Point. However, I'm sure that will be in our next meeting. So let's get on with our...
Can I make one quick comment on this? Just,
all right.
It's related to grants. So I've gotten a number of communications from the public wanting to know if the Harbor District reapplied for the Tiger Grant for this past deadline. I think the deadline was May. We had applied previously, and I just wanted to make sure that there was a rumor going around that we hadn't applied this time.
For the May deadline?
Yeah, for the...
I'm afraid I can't answer that since I wasn't here.
And we don't have Scott here either.
So nobody knows if we applied for the Tiger Grant. Okay.
Okay, moving on with committee reports. Do we have any committee reports?
I can report that the Finance Committee met last Monday. It was a very fruitful meeting, and the committee appreciates the staff time that went into it. And there's going to be an item on the next agenda related to the committee responsibilities. So that's upcoming.
Okay, any other committees? All right. Commissioner statements and requests. Board of Harbor Commissioners may make public statements limited to 5 minutes.
I had a statement I'd like to make.
Commissioner David?
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner. Go ahead, Commissioner Brennan.
Okay, so just to reiterate, today there was a meeting held in Foster City relating to sea level rise. Commissioner Mateusz and myself attended along with a Harbor Patrol member. I'm not sure from which.
Oyster Point.
From Oyster Point. And it was a very interesting meeting. There'll be additional meetings going forward. Right now, the county is working with various agencies to identify what they describe as assets. So example of that would be sewer plants, any public, structure or facility, like even a road that is going to be impacted. They want to have on a list and have accounted for. So right now, they're compiling a list. They're taking input from the public, from other agencies on assets that should be included in their list of assets. And so that's something that our district may want to chat with Supervisor Pine's staff about, if we have any recommendations about assets that this district is concerned about having impacted by sea level rise and even future high tide events. We need to make sure we're in communication with them about what those assets are. And then the last thing I wanted to say on commissioner statements is just that I know I've mentioned this before in our agenda. I would really like it if our agenda could be neutral instead of giving a staff recommendation in the agenda. I'd really, this is just my suggestion, prefer that the staff recommendation be included in the staff report, not on the agenda. That's why when I write a agenda item, I don't make a recommendation to the board in my agenda item. That's it, thanks.
Any other commissioner public statements? Commissioner David.
Because I'm currently struggling with serious health issues, I'm resigning from my position as Harbor Commissioner. At this time, I just don't have the capacity to perform my duties with the focus and dedication they deserve. And it's been an honor to serve on behalf of the people of San Mateo County. And I'm really happy that we were able to make good progress on some of the items that I could help lead. For example, the beach replenishment project, I think, made great progress and is in really good hands with Brett Demetz. The water quality monitoring design was changed to hopefully shed more light on bacterial sources for Pillar Point Harbor. And then I think the Sustainable Seafood Saturday in combination with the fish fleet feed provided a great opportunity and a great start to provide valuable and more information to the public on locally caught and sustainable seafood. And I'm really happy to see that happen. And then, you know, hiring Stephen McGrath as the new general manager, I think will bring stability and focus on priorities and immediate priorities to the district. And I really would like to thank my supporters for their confidence in me, and I want to thank staff for your efforts and all your hard work. It's been a difficult year for me personally, but I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to serve in this position as Harbor Commissioner.
Commissioner David, we'd like to thank you for everything you've done for us and hope that things improve and change from the current situation that you're experiencing. We wish you the best of luck, and our hearts and souls are with you, and hoping that your health catches up with you to the point where we look forward to seeing you on our committees, assisting us, and seeing you in the community. Thank you for everything you've done for us.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go into closed session, specifically conference with labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6.
5 minutes service break.
Let her make it all the way down to you.